बचत से खान मजकूर दिउ में रुख साथ म्यान बाय जानो बचत से खान मजकूर.
The talk you're about to hear with Robin Berlinsky is so inclusive, it's hard to know where to begin. So I'll ask you a few questions. If you want to know how to partner with local organizations to create educational opportunities for your students, if you want to know how to embed 21st century skills in your lessons and projects, if you're looking for after school and summer programs for your children, if you want to know how to get the local community and legislators on board as your greatest advocates, if you want to know how to bring real-world issues into the classroom in ways that excite and motivate your students, and in general, if you want to know how to turn apathy around and watch your students move and learn, this is the talk for you. Get ready for a roller coaster ride with a genuine educator who, for teachers and parents, has the answers you've all been looking for in-school and after-school learning projects. You can hear a lot of other inspirational conversations on a myriad of educational subjects at Doodles with Donna, and find activities to support 21st century skills, just like the ones you'll hear Robin talk about, at scaffoldingmagic.com. So here we go on a roller coaster ride with the incredible Robin Berlinsky. Robin, welcome. Robin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited.
You've had more than 30 years in the educational world, and more than that, actually, if we consider that students were part of the education world, which is completely valid. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your history, about focusing on education as a professional, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, great. So yes, 30 plus years. And I've had a really unique journey because I haven't been in the classroom the whole time, but I've always been in spaces where children learn. And so to go even further back, I was always that little girl who would line up her teddy bears and teach them and then make my brother do worksheets. And I loved to grade things. And I knew that that was always for me. And when I graduated high school, my guidance counselor actually suggested that I go into computer science because teachers didn't make any money. And I was just so impressionable. I thought that was a great idea. So I went to college for computer science and oh my gosh, I was miserable. So transitioned and got back into teaching and was so glad I graduated with the education degree and went right into a first grade classroom in Western New York. And then as life happens, my parents moved to Charleston, South Carolina. So I followed them and my life began here. So I have been teaching and working with spaces of learning since the early 90s, starting in the classroom. And then when my first child was born, my son, I did what a lot of teachers do, and I stayed home with him. And that evolved into working with our local children's museum. So there's my first space of learning that I transitioned to. And as the director of education there, I got to write curriculum. I got to explore the exhibit spaces and think of ways to engage children of all ages. So, as educators, even if we're in a classroom like first grade, we have different levels. And you want to make sure that your content, whatever it is you're teaching, whatever the theme or the topic is, you're reaching all of those kids. So, for example, we had a castle exhibit. And what I would do is make sure a parent who comes into the castle exhibit who has maybe 3 children of various ages can be in that space and all 3 children will get something out of it. So my job was so fun. I got to channel my inner 7-year-old every day and make sure that all these exhibits were just full of exciting hands-on experiences that, kids are having so much fun, they don't know they're learning. So that was my next step. And then something I learned that I love, and I know teachers like to hear this, and you'll love it too. When I was at the Children's Museum and I attended a conference, I heard this keynote speaker say, when we are impacting children, when we are working in spaces of learning, we want them crying on the way out. not on the way in. And that has stuck with me. And in my current role, I'm the CEO of a nonprofit in Charleston that we do arts programs across the state. And wherever we work, that's one of my messages. I say, like, if you're going to create an after school program, let's call it something fun like astronauts in after school rather than homework assistance, because you could be doing homework assistance in the after school fun named program, but you don't have to like present it as after school homework help. So I try to help spaces of learning understand that perception's reality. Let's make it fun. Let's put the broccoli in the pizza and let's get kids excited to learn. So that has evolved into what I also do on the side since way back when, is I teach at the College of Charleston. So I work with future educators. Their junior year, before they student teach, we go into classrooms once a week and we observe early childhood classes, and they get to see the kids performing the math and the science through dance and visual arts, and really seeing how impactful it can be when they're excited and motivated. So I love my job working at the College of Charleston because all my students for the last 24 years have become teachers, principals, administrators. So now you see where I'm going with my network is just like a snowball, and it is huge at this point. And so my job is so easy now. And that is my legacy, my 30 years in education, my legacy to leave education in a space where the woohoo, the fun, the bubbles, the magic are the first thing we think about. And the learning comes second, because the learning happens when you're on fire. The learning happens when you're so curious and so motivated to show up. And that's what I'm all about. That's why I wake up every day.
Well, I love that, Robin. I love that because you've just unpacked a whole bunch of different topics that I really love. Hopefully, we're going to get time to go into, because you're not just into the arts, you're into STEM and STEAM projects. And I really want to get into that. One thing I really do want to dive a little bit deeper into is what you're saying is perception is everything, and how we present information to or a project to our students can change the entire attitude they'll have for the rest of the task. I don't know if you're familiar with the term inquiry question. You probably heard it as the key question or the driving question. And I'm big into project-based learning. And what I try to explain to other teachers, because I work with university students as well, and if we can get them there, then we've helped create teachers for, forever, basically, for learners forever. And driving questions are really just a different way of telling students, this is what we're going to be doing, but you're going to have fun doing it. We're going to be learning about the axis of the Earth and how it tilts. But if we say, for instance, well, there was a battle in space between superheroes, and one of the results was that the Earth changed its axis. What happened? What happened on Earth? And then all of a sudden, I think students will get really excited about it. So it's the perception. It's just what you're saying. What I'd love to do is find out, I do have one specific question. You're saying in the museum that you were sure to balance the lessons, balance the information so that 7-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and maybe even 20-year-olds would respond to it. What about diversity? Were you able to address diversity in the museum tours?
Yeah, so that was a big piece of where I saw a gap. And what I remember early on was when we were signing up or starting summer programs, I could hear the girl in the cubicle next to me, and she was saying, oh, our camp is full, but I'll put you on a waiting list. And I'm thinking, we have a 10,000 square foot museum. We're not huge, in the museum world, but pretty significant. Why are we limiting camp to 20 students who can afford to be here when we could open it to 100 students and get some diversity, not just the paying parents, but scholarships for students who live in this neighborhood and should be able to experience this space. So that was a project I tackled early on, partnering with the school districts to say, where are the neighborhoods in need? Where are the students who need to be in this space in the summer? And building up a program where we would take, and what I do now actually is our summer camps are 100 students where 70 pay and then 30 have scholarships. so that you're not having one school having a summer camp where the students who are together from September through May are now together in the summer, because you keep those same little cliques and groups and things. But when you can shake it up and get kids from all different parts of your community together for 6 weeks in the summer, it's magic. So I love that question. And I think there's a lot of opportunity across the country to really dive into that.
And what about physical diversity? What about special needs, I guess, is the question. In the museum, are you really focused on special needs at all?
So the museum, I don't work at the museum anymore. But yes, we were compliant with all the ADA requirements. And then as far as the educational piece for us, what we do is we send out surveys for parents. And the survey is the first line of communication. Tell us about your child. Tell us about your family. Tell us about you. And that's where we dive into the needs. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be developmental, educational, social. What are the needs and how can we serve that? So we're unique because at Engaging Creative Minds, we have a very small team and we hire for the temporary programs we do. So what we hire is what the consumer needs. So the consumer being the family. So if we find out we have physical needs, we'll hire a teacher who teaches special ed at a local school and is familiar with the needs of this particular camper. So we're really focused on getting that feedback early because we don't know what the students need until we know the students.
And that's a really important element. I'm a teacher trainer. When I began, I was actually very arrogant and didn't realize how arrogant I was. I had information that I wanted to share. And what I did was I started sharing it without asking questions. And someone told me at one point, she didn't say it really nicely, but I'm so glad she did say it. She said, you're offending people because you're not asking questions and they aren't feeling very safe in the workshops that you're giving. And I thought that's something so important I need to begin working on. And what your first point is about the museum is talk to the parents. Collaboration. And you and I both know that in school, if we have a positive collaboration with parents, learning goes way up. So is that something that you're also bringing into your lessons at the university?
Yeah. And I love that. First, I want to say good for you. I always tell my students, when you think you know everything, it's time to retire. Be a forever lifelong learner. Yes. So to my students, and something I've always done and am very passionate about is not only with the surveys, it's kind of the first line of communication. And to me, that's more intake. We're not having a back and forth. You're telling me all about your child and all about your family, and I'm listening. The first line of communication between us should be positive. So no matter what happens, I'm going to find something the first week that I can call home, write a note, send a text, email about something great this child did. Something amazing that I am just blown away by your child's magical ability to be in this camp. And we're so grateful they're here. And now and it's not fake, it's true. It's empowering. And the parent, to your point, Don, I love what you said about safe. They're now safe. They know we are a champion for their child. And then if there has to be a difficult conversation, they will receive it because we've already opened up that space of positivity and honesty. And so they trust us to say something when it's more difficult to hear.
Again, such an important point, and I'm amazed by people who don't know this. When I was training to be a teacher, my teacher said to me, her one point that she hammered in over and over again, and again, I'm so glad she did, was you always start with a positive. No matter what feedback you're going to give, no matter what you want to say, find something positive. And I've done that till today. I mean, every single feedback I give, sometimes I start with sort of all of my frustration about what I want to share with the teacher that I was hoping they were changing, but I will always go back and start with a positive, or they will not be willing to read anything else. And that goes for parents also. If their parents know that at your heart, you see their children, you see their soul, then they're willing to help collaborate with you and try to work on everything else.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, it's human nature. It's human nature. We all want to be heard, and we all want to feel safe. It's just, we're human.
Can you tell us a little bit about, you're the executive director of Engaging Creative Minds, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You are focusing on STEM and STEAM projects, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, you know that STEM and STEAM is very big now. Can you explain why? Can you first explain what STEM and STEAM stand for, and then why is it so big today?
Absolutely. So it's the world. So STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And then when you add the A and make it STEAM, you've added the arts. And early on, when I started with ECM, for short, Engaging Creative Minds, ECM, 10 years ago, it was very difficult for me to, quote, sell the arts because so many people thought it was glitter and glue and kind of the last thing you do when you've done all the stuff that's important. And I recognized that early on that was a big misconception that people had. And I changed the narrative a little to say design, innovation, and creativity is the arts. That's the essence of what the arts are. And something that kind of fell in our lap very serendipitously is, our early on donor was the Boeing company. So Boeing had just landed, hot pun intended, in Charleston. And we had written a grant, and it was about an idea. I hadn't even started yet. It was this wonderful group of collaborators in Charleston who said, we have an idea, let's write a grant. And Boeing funded it. And they've been funding us ever since. And something they say that we use is we couldn't build an airplane without the arts. And so that tells the story of what STEAM really is. It's what we do every single day. It's that interdisciplinary approach. You can't separate, like when you're living your life, when you're cooking, when you're balancing your checkbook, you're not separating, oh, it's time for math, I'm going to balance my checkbook. It's you think about your life and you think about it's all encompassing. So when we have a summer STEAM institute or an after school STEAM program, what we're doing is we require teachers to participate as learners, and we bring in local artists who collaboratively plan STEAM lessons so that teachers can, one, maybe see their students in a different way, because sometimes they'll say to us, oh, you can't do that with my kids. It'll get too crazy. And number two, they learn new strategies for the future. So we're not giving them a fish, we're teaching them how to fish, but also giving them the power, the confidence, the autonomy to then create future STEAM lessons without us, because we're not a program that helicopters in and then, you can't do it without us and you have to pay us to come back. We empower through STEAM by showing, not telling. And when you sit down with curriculum, when you look at your state standards, whether they're Common Core or your state has their own, you will see that in one robust STEAM activity, you're covering all social studies, English language arts, science, math, you're covering them all, plus those beautiful, what we call the soft skills, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, working together, grit, perseverance. So it's just beautiful. It's like, to me, a symphony when it's working. And the message we want to provide to the teachers we work with is, teach like we live. Bring STEAM into your classroom so you experience it all at once. And to your point earlier, so it's an experience, it's hands-on, and it's just part of who we are. It's natural. And it creates that curiosity in the kids.
I want to go back to the soft skills because I think that's essential today. And it's one of the things in Europe. I told you I live in Spain, and one thing in Spain is that we're moving more into competences. And it's difficult for the teachers here because they were taught as a young age, and they were taught when they were training to be teachers to focus on content. So I want to get into the soft skills, but I do want to go back to one point. The difference between STEM and STEAM. You were saying that Boeing said their planes could not be designed without art. Can you explain that a little more?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of engineering concepts, and think of architecture and think of angles. And, when we look at geometry and even the axis, the X and Y axis, and all the things we did in high school and college, that the Pythagorean theorem. And when you look and dive in, there is art in there. A right angle is art. The lines, the rays, things like that. And that it aligns beautifully with art. And something the Boeing engineers who serve on our board help us understand is, marketing a plane is just as important as the way the seats are aligned, how the engine, the thrust, the design of the whole airplane system It's just as important, because you won't be in business if you can design a great plane. You won't be in business if you can't sell it. And so we've actually attended the kind of celebrations when they bring in the country that's going to buy a fleet of airplanes. And it's amazing how they'll take a white airplane with no markings on it at all, and they'll have it sitting out on the runway. And they do it at that beautiful time in the evening when the sun is just right. And they'll flash this beautiful choreographed to music light show on the plane with the logo. And there's like energy of the music. It's like hearing the Star Wars music, or Rocky running up the steps, and you have chills. And it's all of that is part of building an airplane. And so without it, there is no STEM. You have to have the STEAM. And this is, again, such an important part of the whole process, from conception to, it's flying in the air with all the people in it.
Well, I am amazed at the energy it took for you to get Boeing on, to get them to collaborate with you. What I'm wondering is, what is their motivation in the collaboration?
Oh my gosh. So they volunteer with us. They join us in events with schools. Their message to students is, we don't care where you went to college. We don't care if you're an A+ student. We don't care. We want students who think. We want students who graduate ready to problem solve, ready to join a team as a learner. We don't want employees to come in and tell us how to do anything. We want them to come with an open mind and the energy that we need to continue growing and thriving as an organization. And that message resonates with all of us at Engaging Creative Minds, because really that's what those social skills that, again, that we're talking about, those soft skills are more critical at the beginning than how they design, what their engineering skills are, what their accounting skills are, whatever it is they're interviewing for at Boeing. They're looking for who you are as a person and how you stick with a project, how you problem solve, and how you ask for help when you're not sure what the answer is. So that's what's in it for them.
But it sounds like you're leaving out something that I think is so inherent in the collaboration that you're not saying it. And I think it is, Boeing is fostering future employees.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Are they open about that? And
Yeah.
then the next question is, it's just from one particular area of the United States. Is there any way to broaden that?
Well, yes. And we work with a lot of national organizations. We're affiliated or connected with the National Summer Learning Association, the National After School Alliance, the Education Commission of the States. We're very connected in what is happening nationally and how can we work together and collaborate with other organizations. And then to your Boeing point, I'll never forget, one of the engineers on our board said exactly what you just said. We were kind of coming up with our mission statement. Do we redefine it? And he listened. He just sat and listened. And then at the very end, he said, we introduce kids to their futures. And I was like, it's brilliant. So absolutely, we're fostering those future employees by supporting Engaging Creative Minds because of what we do and how we do it. It's not even so much what we do, it's the process. We think of ourselves as more of a system than a program. And that's the piece Boeing loves. That's the special sauce.
So I'm wondering if you knew that going in, that would happen, that you were going to be talking to an organization that would so proactively foster your students, or were you just looking for some financial support? Because what I'm also trying to include in this is, what can other teachers and what can other people with your energy do to find partnerships?
I love that question, because I say all the time, two things. I think of it like, to me, relationships matter more than anything. And relationships aren't always in your lane. And, we could have gone to Crayola. We could have gone to, we went to Boeing, the biggest science organization in our state. And we said, we're an arts organization. Would you like to collaborate with us? And they were like, yeah, you've got to think differently than what you think who you think you should partner with. And I kind of align it with, like if you need a line of credit or if you need a loan from a bank. Really, the strategy is you go when you don't need the money. You want to show them you're good for the line of credit, right? And that's sort of where we were at the beginning. We had support. We had collaboration. We had funders. We went to Boeing to say, this is a great opportunity for you to invest in an organization and work with us, la, la, la. And that was the catch. It wasn't, oh my gosh, we need money. Oh my gosh, please fund this program or we won't be able to do it. It doesn't come from a space of need. It comes from a space of opportunity. And we went to them before we needed any money. We went to them to say, you're here, we're here. There are lots of kids. How do we serve them? Let's work together.
And probably another teacher could do the same thing, even if that teacher didn't have the money or the financial backing yet, just as the attitude is what you're talking about.
It's all about attitude. Yes. And another thing I recommend, we used to do this pre-COVID, and we're going to get back to it. As an organization, we do monthly field trips. And what that means is I take my staff somewhere in the community to visit another nonprofit, an organization, a company, to learn more about them, so that the intent there is, can we collaborate? Are there opportunities? And in the future, if I see an opportunity that might not align with our mission, maybe it aligns with yours, and I'll send it to you so that we're in this together. Let's let all the boats rise. So I would encourage teachers in the time you have to reach outside the school you're in, reach outside the school district you're in, see if you can communicate and have, conversations like this with teachers from another state, and just talk through things, because sometimes the answers are well outside where you think they are, and you find nuggets of gold in spaces you never even thought you would.
All right. So then I'd like to go to the soft skills, and I am reluctant to call them soft skills because I think they're critical skills.
We
I
call
think
them
they're
power
absolutely
skills.
critical.
They're power skills.
What I'm going to do is read to you, because I can never remember the 10 the 10 most important skills that the OECD recommends that teachers now focus on in their classrooms. And when I first started giving workshops on critical thinking, for instance, I thought, what in the world would the OECD care about education? And I'm lucky enough to work with someone who's one of the advisors of the OECD. And one of their precepts is, we want to help teachers promote the skills that students will need when they leave the school. And I thought, well, wonderful. How does that help them? But what they're finding is the countries with the strongest economies are those in which the students leave school with the strongest science and math skills. And those are the countries that will need the least help from other neighboring countries. So it is in their best interest to promote the skills in countries with weaker math and science skills, to show them, if you would start using these critical thinking skills, you're going to have graduates with more economic sense. I'm going to tell you the 10 most important skills for promoting 21st century thinking. We have problem solving, and these are most of the ones you've already mentioned. We have problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, and then there's people management, coordination with others, emotional intelligence, which is Hughes, and which we all realized during the pandemic is much bigger and much more important than we all realized beforehand. There's fairness in decision making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility, the 10 that the OECD thinks are the most important. And those are the ones that I saw in your programs that you're promoting the most. So could you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that. Something that we try to do. So two things. When we go into a school district, we empower the community. We purchase everything there. We focus on their local economy. We, T-shirts will be printed by a printer in their area. All the materials. We try not to go to Amazon. We try to go to a local, even if it's a Family Dollar, Dollar General. Purchase what we can to show the teachers that it's here. You have this here. And then we hire everybody in that community. And sometimes when you're in a rural school district, clearly there's not an arts, a strong arts community where you can pull a dance and a theater and a visual arts teacher. But you can find unique opportunities, like a farmer. Cooking is an art. We have found sewing clubs where we brought in all the sewing machines. We went to the local church and collected all their sewing machines and moved them over to the school. And these wonderful women who had a sewing social came and helped the children sew. And things like sweetgrass basket making is big in South Carolina. And all of these things are full of math and science. But what's additional is this culture, this history that comes with the community coming into the school during the summer. And when they're making a sweetgrass basket, they're talking. and they're telling stories, and the kids are learning listening skills, and they're understanding how to collaborate in a cooking class that they're taking, so that they can, maybe find ways to think about the way where they get their produce, or how produce, where it is found in their community. There's a lot of talking. We have a lot of downtime. We push the desks to the side and we say, just be in this space. And what you find early on is there's this uncomfortable beginning. They don't understand. They're not sitting at a desk. They don't have to walk in a straight line. All these like rules and restrictions are peeled away, and suddenly they're kids. And when they're kids, they can stay on a project longer. It's not, time for math. Stop what you're doing. It's, let's finish this after lunch. Let's get back to it. So they learn the perseverance, and they understand how to take what they've learned and help another who is struggling. And it's not a teacher direct. It's not saying this person's having trouble with math, go help them because the test is tomorrow. It's, oh my gosh, we're not sure how to measure this headband because the elastic is bigger than the material. And is that going to work? I don't know. Let's ask my friend. So there's these opportunities to naturally embed these 10 characteristics that you talk about into 6 weeks, so they experience it. And it's not so much about make sure we do it, let's check the box. It's inherently in the hands-on. It's inherently in the work we're doing, simply because we're existing in a space for 8 hours a day, creating, being curious, seeking understanding, wanting to make something. You want that sweetgrass basket to turn out super cool. So you're going to figure out how to measure it. So the right, you've got the right amount of material and all those other things. So there's a lot involved with that, just how we work within a local, economy here. It's not a country. I know you're talking countries and we're talking, towns in South Carolina, but it's kind of the same concept. It's starting where they are and showing how simple it is really when you focus on projects and collaboration and not results, tests.
And what you started with is community. And I know I talk about the global community a lot just because I'm in that sort of educational world, but it starts in the local community. And there's a project-based learning in Finland called phenomenon-based learning. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And phenomenon-based learning is exactly what you're talking about, is taking a situation and exploring it inside and out. And involving the community is fundamental, because what the idea is, if the students bring in the community into the classroom and they go outside of the classroom, then all of a sudden their perspective is different and more expansive. And they will probably, even maybe not in that opportunity, they will have another opportunity to go national, and then another opportunity to go global. And so what you're doing is widening their perspective, which is exactly what we need to be doing nowadays. Yes?
Yes. And I want to add something to that. Something we've done recently is include legislators in the process. And the legislation is leaning in at this point. We've got House and Senate, Congress, men and women who have early on helped us communicate with school districts to let them know that we have funding and we want to work with them. And sometimes that's hard. It's hard to kind of break into a new community because you don't live there. And they're like, who are you? Why would we welcome? We got this. But when you've got a local legislator who's invested in a community and who wants to support, then they have those conversations. They go to school board meetings. And then that ultimately, again, we talked about the snowball at the very beginning. It snowballs because now when the kids have a performance and they're showcasing their learning, you've got legislators there. And, ultimately legislators will lead to funding. And, it's just a great, again, community opportunity, but taking it even a concentric circle or two out. And this is great advice for for teachers. Know your legislators, know who is representing you, and get them involved early on before you need money, before you need anything. Get them involved so they're part of this process and they know what's happening.
It's such an important point, and it's not easy because if you're a dedicated teacher, usually most of your energy is going into the lessons, into your students. When I was first doing a little bit of alternative lessons, I thought, well, I'm making my mark. It's fine. All I need to do is my work and everything is going to explode. Everyone's going to see what I'm doing and everyone around me is going to be innovative as well. That's actually not how it works. What I'm doing now is working with schools, and what it shows is that you need to have everyone on board. You need to have the parents, the teachers, the administrators, the directors, and the legislators. Because if you don't have all of them on the same page, nobody's moving forward. It's just sort of, it's an uneven. It's kind of like walking in the theme parks where the ground is going up and down and you really don't get anywhere fast.
Right.
So working with legislators is very important. And I would like to make a point that I was speaking with Stephanie Bacon, who's working on the socio-emotional effects of teaching. And she's working with legislators to help get training for teachers, because if teachers aren't trained in learning how to be more emotionally appropriate, then they're not going to be helping their students either. So how would you recommend that teachers get to know their legislators in a proactive way?
Well, I would turn it into a writing assignment. Let's kill two birds with one stone. Okay, students, today we're going to do some research. Who are what is legislation? Depending on what grade you are in, let's just dive right into this social studies juiciness and figure it out. So I would turn it into a writing assignment. Let's write, let's send letters, let's connect that way first and let the students, kindergartners as a chart paper group project, fifth graders as individual letters, and talk about, not just here's what we're doing in school or this is what we want you to come see, but talk about the local, what's happening in the community, what they might like, what they might want to see changed, show that they're involved and in politics, that they understand, and what a great learning experience. And then hopefully that leads to something. So I would start there. And if there is no response, I would recommend the teachers go to, there's in our state, we have local Arts Advocacy Day, and you go to the State House and the legislators are there and they come eat lunch with us. And there are opportunities within whatever, group you resonate with, whether it's math teachers or dance educators. There's usually a day where you go to your State House and you get to meet your legislators. Well, that right there, take the day off, get a sub, go there and talk and, share a business card or something with those legislators and really connect as much as possible to get them to at least you're on their radar. That's what's important.
And I love that your first inclination was talk about giving their students an assignment, because all of a sudden you've given some part of the curriculum that they have to learn anywhere and give it anyway, and they're giving it meaning. They have to figure out the structure. They have to learn how to change the tone that's appropriate. They have to learn to be respectful and firm at the same time. And they're making it personal. So I applaud that. I love that idea.
And something, again, back to those soft skills, power skills, they may not agree with their legislator and it's okay, right? Kids shouldn't think you shouldn't be angry. Kids shouldn't think you shouldn't disagree. They need to find positive ways to think differently and communicate. I may not agree with you, but I respect your opinion. I can tell you how I feel. And that just what a great experience for them to be able to tap into those soft skills and really practice what it means to be respectful and communicate to seek understanding, not to this is my way and it's the only way and you're going to hear me and I want to change you, but more we're all in this together. I respect how you feel and I want you to hear how I feel. And that's a great learning experience too.
It's a huge skill right now. Negotiation is the big on everybody's radar. It's a big skill that in English learning students need to focus on. And that means listening to what the other person is saying, paraphrasing it, and then responding with a disagreement, but a very respectful disagreement. And so negotiation is fundamental. And I always bring it back to telling the students, I used to be an English literature teacher, and teaching essays, the structured essays, is really difficult because it's not intuitive and it's not fun. And I'd say to them, listen, this is, if you want to stay out later one night and you have to convince your parents, this is going to help you because it's going to help you structure your ideas. And it's, the persuasive essay type thing. So if we can give them meaning to what they need to learn anyway, then it's a win-win situation, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes.
All right, so let me go back a little bit because you were talking about strategies. And again, it's so important because there are some academies, I'm not sure in the States, but in Europe, there are a lot of academies for critical thinking. What is critical thinking? You really can't have an academy to do it because once you learn one strategy, it's going to be appropriate for one context and not for another. And so what you're describing are ways to help students learn different strategies for different situations. It's called heuristics. Can you go into that a little bit, some of the strategies they're learning and that you intentionally plan for them?
Well, I think the biggest intention is the diversity of the students, because in the summer, especially when you can shake it up and bring in new groups of kids, right there, you're tweaking the way they've worked all school year. So they have to brush their teeth with their left hand now. They're with kids they've never met. They're hearing, voices, dialect, opinions, and experiences. One school may have a dance program, one school may not. And so when you're in a dance program in the summer, you've got these kids who have been dancing for 3 years and these kids who haven't. So you have to understand that we're all at different levels. And there's just that piece alone in the diversity of who we serve is huge, because you have to think critically, both socially and academically, because you're now with different teachers and different kids. So that piece is naturally embedded. And then the other piece is that the teachers aren't teachers, the teaching artists are. So now you've got a different mindset. So, we as teachers, we've got our behavior management, we know how to balance it all. We've got our developmental level, like we scaffold thing, like we got this. Then you throw in a teaching artist and they're like a whole different animal. And it's amazing. And the students will at first think there's a certain way, and then, oh, it's not. Look what now we're what? And then there's music, and it's this different energy and a different mindset. And again, it's that shift for them. And I love it because they now think critically in a whole different way. So, back to our earlier conversation about the STEM and how the math is everywhere with like XY axis and the right angles. Well, now you're doing that with dance. You've got your body and you're creating a tableau from a book, and you've got to make a right angle with your legs, and you've got a partner who's doing it with their arms. And you're now thinking critically about geometry in a whole different way. It's not on a piece of paper with a pencil. It's not even with manipulatives, but you're actually using your whole body in a choreographed dance sequence that has to have a rhythm and work with the music. Your brain is just on fire at that point. So that's what we try to do with the kids is the math and the science, the standards, they're all there, but you now have to think in a whole different way because they're being presented differently and you have to respond differently.
So I know I have a very technical question for you, because you were a first and a fifth grade teacher. So if we can go back to there's a huge developmental range there. What are some of the differences, the challenges that you had teaching, focusing on STEM to first graders and then fifth graders?
And it's interesting because I teach juniors in college now. So my even bigger span is I went from first grade to juniors in college. And I always say the only difference is I don't tie their shoes, but that's my joke. So I started in first grade. I loved first grade and I was never changing. I was going to be a first grade teacher till I retired. And then when I took my first maternity leave, I came back and the principal said, well, we have a fifth grade job for you. I was like, oh, yikes. So the transition for me really was easy because kids are kids. Kids like to move. Kids like to be presented with fun. And then again, like the broccoli and the pizza, then the learning comes later. So that's really my superpower. I can remember, English language arts, and we were learning, my kids kept getting similes and homophones mixed up. And I think they were taught together in fourth grade. So of course we're going to get them mixed up because they don't mean anything. And I remember hearing of a lesson someone had done with the Temptation song, you got to smile so bright, you could have been a candle. And so I went in and I said, you guys, I got a phone call last night and the Temptations are in prison in California because they have grammatical errors in their simile song. And they knew you guys were brilliant at English language arts. So they asked us to help them. Now, these are 10-year-olds. They're not believing it, but it's fun enough. Like, she's crazy enough. We like where this is going. We're not sure what she's doing, but we're all in and they're listening. And I said, so what we're going to do, I'm going to play the song and you're going to fix the grammatical errors. You're going to turn the 10 similes they did wrong into real similes. And we have to do it by 10 o'clock to get them out of prison. So let's hop to it. And so that's the first grade piece is that, we're going to play to learn. And it worked in fifth grade too. And so even with force and motion, in first grade, we would get out of our seats and make our letters with our bodies to learn phonics. And in fifth grade, they would get up and move their bodies to learn forces in motion, which is a science standard in fifth grade. So I took the curriculum, but I used the same methods, and the kids responded in the exact same way. That our teacher's crazy, but my gosh, is she fun? And I don't know how she did it, but I passed that test. And, we were just up running around and dancing. So it's really in the delivery to me. And I think the delivery, even to my college students, is the same. I have fun with them too. And then you break it down into the pieces once you get them caught with the bubbles and the excitement.
Okay, so what you're saying is play as much as possible.
Yes. 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 I could have said that in one sentence, huh?
No. I love how you said it, because for me, I was a sixth grade teacher, and I did 1 year as a fifth, sixth grade teacher, both of them combined, but I never did first, second, third, and fourth. And I loved sixth grade because then they're getting their personalities and they're learning how to talk back a little bit. And I thought that was wonderful. And I ended up, before I left the classroom, I was a high school teacher. I love high school students. Their job is to argue and disagree with everything we have to say. And I thought, you're doing it really, really well. So I enjoyed that. But what I find most challenging, where I hit against walls, are talking to teachers of first and second primary who say, my students can't do that. And I say, well, they're little human beings. Yes, they can. They just need the opportunity. So what would you say to someone like that?
Oh my God, children don't rise to low expectations, right? I say, go for it. Oh my gosh. And, I remember assigning a project in first grade that my students would read every single Caldecott book. And some of the parents came to me and they're like, holy moly, do you know how many Caldecott books there are? I said, I do, but let's shoot for the moon. And if we hit some stars, then we're fine. Like, let's do this. And so it's just the capacity to understand that, it's like, even in corporate America, I can't remember what they call them, but they do those moonshots and they do these graphs and dynamics, and the teams work together and they always create goals they can't hit because it makes you try harder. That's what I say to teachers, like, make goals they can't hit, because some of them might, and why leave them behind? And so, I'm a firm believer in, we don't need to have low expectations at all.
No, and I don't know if you know the studies by John Hattie. He's a New Zealander who's been studying best practices, educational practices, for more than 30 years. And the second top best practice that we can have are our expectations. High expectations means we believe that our students can learn. And so we're going to do anything we can and everything we can to make that happen. And so I love that you just said that.
Yeah. I love it.
And there's this wonderful book I have on my bookshelf. I forgot who the author is, but I will put it into the notes and I'll send it to you, because it's about becoming a high expectation teacher. And my God, I just, I dream about the things that they're saying because I love it.
Oh, I would love to know more about that. Thank you.
No, absolutely. You probably do it all, so I don't know how much you need to read and learn, but it's a great book.
Hey, I'm a lifelong learner. I absorb. I'm a sponge.
You are. And boy, do you shoot it out afterwards too. So now the next question you're going to love, because I think you already know the answer to this. You do it. It's about summer. And we know that the studies show that if we aren't proactive with our children during the summer, the learning is lost. A lot of it disappears. So in an ideal world, everyone would have access to your programs in the summer. What about those people who don't have access to those programs? What could the parents do? What can the children do? What can we suggest before they leave for the summer vacation?
Well, that's the hot topic of my year, and really what I'm all about with my business. The Energy Matters platform that I work on is really important to me. That's the legacy piece. I created this learning ring system that's with 180 cards, and when you've gone through them all, you've covered every state standard for English language arts, math, science, and social studies, and they're independent. Kids work on them. They come in a retro metal lunchbox, and the materials are in there. And the cards, there's a box and one of those cool retractable multicolor pens. Remember those? So cool. And they can tally when they do a card to make sure they cover all 180. It's something that could move into the summer for those kids. For me, it's about, I want to get through it. I want to check the boxes. It's a challenge. So they go through these cards. And the intent is really for the after school space, because summer to me and after school are out of school time spaces. both equally important and both sometimes missed opportunities. And so the cards were created for after school spaces so that connection. I remember when I was a teacher, I would line my kids up. There would be the car riders, the bus riders, and then the after school kids. And the after school was a black hole. I didn't know where they went. There was no communication with me. I didn't know what the kids were doing. Well, what a great opportunity to do what I'm doing, to support what my classroom is doing in a different way. So I made these kits so that after school programs could align with what's happening in the school day, but in a fun way. And so I say all that to say that to me, experiences are everything. So I wouldn't say that you want to do flashcards. I wouldn't even say you have to read tons of books. If kids aren't interested in books, they're going to stare at a page. So you want them to be curious and you want them to have experiences. And as a teacher, especially in the early grades, when you're introducing a new subject, a new topic, you start by tapping into their past experiences. And if a kid has had many experiences, they've got that hand going up there, they're like lit, like, ooh. And then you've got the kid that never experienced it. They're sort of like, oh, I don't know what this is. I'm not sure how to even start. So having experiences and whatever that is, even if you're in an impoverished area where you can get outside and pour water in dirt and see what it does and dig and there's ways to learn in an environment no matter where you are, and not just sitting. You've got to explore and, hands-on again, that you talk about. Opportunities, I would say, exist. There are nonprofits everywhere. I would encourage parents to seek out nonprofits that serve your area, because I have learned, being in the nonprofit world, there are more nonprofits than I ever imagined, and they have funding to help. But they don't know where you are if you don't raise your hand. It's not an embarrassing thing to ask for help. It's empowering. And those nonprofits would welcome the opportunity to serve you. So I would say, as a parent, even a teacher, seek those nonprofits that have full funding to provide kits or experiences, or even to get you a scholarship into a program and transportation. Just seek it out to find it.
And you're saying they could do some simple searches on the internet, right?
I think so. Yeah. I've done that to find our monthly field trips. Like, where will we go? What nonprofit will we visit to learn what they do? And it is amazing, from homelessness to feeding to education it's just, they're out there. And again, as a nonprofit leader, we don't know who our service area is all the time. But if someone were to reach out and say, I need help, that's like a gift. Like, you've helped me do my job. I exist to serve you. So please reach out and let me know how I can help.
Okay, it sounds exactly what we're supposed to do with the angels. The angels can't do much to help us unless we ask for help.
Yes, exactly.
What I'm also trying to say, an underlining foundation, is, instead of saying, oh, woe is me, is saying, I am going to find an answer for my child for the summer, or I am going to give the parents of my students a list of places that they can talk to, and perhaps it would be a good match for them, no matter what the financial situation is of the family. So I really love that.
And it's always
okay, and then
being a champion for the kids.
Thank you. That's so important, because we're there, hopefully, the best of us. And there are only a few teachers that give the unfortunate stereotype that they're there for summer vacations. And that's a whole other topic, because it's not true.
Someone gave me a mug once that said, the 3 reasons I'm a teacher: June, July, and August. And I threw it away.
Thank you.
Those are not the reasons. And I know it was a joke and it was in humor, but I was like, oh my gosh, I would be embarrassed to use that mug.
No, it's not at all. And anyway, most teachers work during the summer vacation. And what most people don't know is that we're not paid for summer vacation. We're paid through summer vacation. It is divided into 12 months, but we're really only paid for 10 months. I'm saying that here now. You can all research it if you want to. I do have sort of a tangent topic on the summer, the importance of summer, of experiences, and that is retention. And I'm going back to the studies of John Hattie, and he says that retention is one of the worst things we can do to students. In some cases, I do have teachers that say, no, in this case, in this student's case, it was the best thing we could have done. But in the most part, it's the worst thing we could do. And there was one family that came to me and they said, the teacher is determined for my 10-year-old to repeat 4th grade. And the only reason was because she hadn't mastered the multiplication table. And I said, you know what? I think this summer, all we're going to do is work on the multiplication table. And she went on and she's now graduating from university. But what could you say about that? What could parents do to sort of counterbalance any resistance that children have in school? And the result is that they're failing some subjects.
Oh my gosh. So there's so much. So two things. Number one, I still count on my fingers and I haven't mastered the multiplication table. So it's okay. But secondly, my first job when I moved to South Carolina, I left New York. I had been a first grade teacher. I came here and I was assigned this in-between space. It was called readiness. It was the kindergartners who weren't ready for first grade. They wanted to retain them, but they weren't failing enough to be retained in kindergarten, which in and of itself is crazy to me that a kindergarten would be, quote, failing, like they're 5. Like, I don't even know what that means. So I'm in this classroom of like readiness, these kids in between. And I was told, like, be ready to remediate, they're not with their peers. And remember, I came from New York teaching first grade. And I sit down with these little munchkins and they were first graders to me. Like, I have no idea. I was baffled with why they were here. Because again, I presented the learning in fun ways. So immediately we didn't go to a worksheet. So I couldn't see that they didn't know all their letters, or it's okay. We're going to get through first grade and you're going to know them all. You're going to be reading. And they advanced and they went on and they actually went to second grade. They went with their peers. And my learning there was, who is that person that says this kid, they're 5? Like, why do you get to say they're not ready? They're 10. Why do fractions still confuse me? Like, I don't know an ounce in a pound. Like, when I'm baking, I got to Google what teaspoon, what's an ounce equal to a teaspoon? I would be probably still in 7th grade if my teachers based it on what I knew and didn't know. So I just say the learning is all about the person, the full person. And maybe this 10-year-old who's being retained for not knowing
the multiplication tables.
Multiplication tables. Maybe they're going to be the next Misty Copeland dancer. Like, why do multiplication tables matter? And I'm making a joke of it. Obviously, we want students to learn and, all of this is important. But I say, to be honest, I wish we had no grades. I wish we all just went to school and did our thing and advanced as we needed. And we all just were this melting pot of people in a school learning in fun ways. But, we have to work around those things that we're given, right?
Right, depending on the methodology we're in. This has absolutely flown, and there is probably 3 more hours we could be talking minimum about so many different issues. What I do want to go back to are 2 things. First of all, the Learning Ring, because you have started a webpage, but it's not really up and running yet. So where could people find the Learning Ring?
Yeah. So the best way really is my Instagram is the stable thing in my life right now, Robin_Berlinsky. I also have a podcast and I do weekly prizes. So I give away a lot of, like, this week, if you listen to one of the episodes and you send me the answer, I'm giving away a 61 key kids keyboard, the 61 keys. Last week I gave away a Lego International Space Station and a pickleball set. Lots of fun ways for parents to learn little nuggets of things through these Learning Ring systems, but on weekly doses. And so the Learning Ring, the website is going to be energymatterswithrobin.com. And we're updating it now. We just went out to a school. We did some great photos. The kids were great. And I'm really excited about it. So yeah, follow me on Instagram, Robin_Berlinsky, and you'll be up to date on the launch of the site.
Okay, perfect. And I will give that in the notes. And
Thank
so
you.
The last thing we're going to do right now, because I really am determined to talk to you again, because this has just been so much fun.
Yay!
And I just am amazed by your energy and your determination and all your creativity. So I like to end on the what if question, because the what if is the most powerful question we can ask anyone. It opens up a whole door for creativity, and there's no right answer. There's so many right answers. And for you, it really has to do with what if you could now have your next iteration, which is exactly what you're doing. So what is your new iteration? What would you love to be doing in the next 5 years?
Oh my gosh, I know exactly. I see it. I want to be traveling around the country, filling stadiums with parents and teachers who just want to learn about how to support their kids through this K through 12th grade journey and be, knowledgeable and not just rely on schools to tell them what their kids need to know, but say to them, let me show you how fun it is to be your child's teacher and support them through school. That's my dream.
Okay, so learning through experiences, and you're
Yeah.
going to show us how to do it, right, Robin?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And through my stories, my journey was not a straight path, graduate. Wow, here I am with a 401k and I'm happy. It's been like crazy fails and epic mistakes and picking myself up. Talk about grit, talk about all those soft skills. That's what got me through, not the multiplication tables. So I would just love to empower parents and teachers in a different way, not through like what the curriculum is, but through like what the energy is that supports the curriculum.
And it was taking the curriculum and making it active and meaningful and dynamic.
Like life.
And I think,
Yeah.
Robin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you
was
so
so
much for all of
fun.
this. It was wonderful.
So that's the end of our conversation with Robin Berlinsky, but I encourage you to look into the incredible resources she's created and contact her to learn more about partnering with organizations in your towns. Please find activities to get your students moving, singing, and dancing at scaffoldingmagic.com, and we'll see you soon for more educational waterfalls like this one at Doodles with Donna. In the meantime, have fun in your classes and at home.
पकड़ के तूने चलना सिखाया था ना, दहलीज ऊंची है ये पार करा दे।